I know time is short, but and I don't know if the committee's familiar with this, and I'm going to share this with you. Lori Garver gave a speech on March 10th to the American Astronautical Society, and this was dumbfounding to me. The NASA, the statute creating NASA, Congress's direction to NASA, and the nation's direction is that NASA's job is, quote, to pioneer the future in space exploration, scientific discovery, and aeronautics research, period. Lori Garver told the American Astronomical Society that NASA's priority are to fight poverty, promote world peace, and societal advancement, and protect the environment. I think, she says, and I'll quote it directly, she says, the President's budget will enable NASA to align with the priorities of the nation. And these key national priorities that I'm referring to are economic development, poverty, hunger, and jobs, international leadership and geopolitics, world peace, education, societal advancement, environment, future of the planet and of humanity. And I'd suggest to you that Ms. Garver has completely lost sight of the core mission of NASA, which is to preserve and protect America's leadership in manned and robotic space exploration, to pioneer the future in space exploration, scientific discovery, and aeronautics research, to go where no one has gone before and explore new worlds. And that is NASA's mission. NASA's mission is not fighting poverty, world peace, and protecting the environment. I mean, those may be subsets or spin-offs, but Ms. Garver's, I'll make sure my colleagues see this. This is very disturbing. Were you aware of this? And is your vision of NASA that NASA's #1 job is to fight poverty or world peace? Surely not.
I know Lori incredibly well, and I know that Lori knows what the mission of NASA is.
Well, this is what she told the astronomers.
I don't think she questions whatsoever what our charge is and what our mission is under the National Space Act and the subsequent Appropriations Act.
Would you please talk to her and get? I mean, this needs to be retracted. This is not acceptable.
Yes, sir.
You don't agree with this, do you?
NASA's mission, as established by the National Space Act, has not changed. NASA's mission, is still what it is. And
so you disagree with Ms. Garver? You disagree with this speech,
Congressman? That's the first I've seen that, and I just don't want to get in.
I'll share it with you. Make sure you see it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Though, I mean, if we decide that, Ares 5 is the design we want to use, and we just start the development of Ares 5, how could that possibly take longer than doing R&D on other potential lift technologies, settling on a new technology, developing that new technology? How could that possibly be quicker than developing Ares 5?
Congressman, I think the biggest thing would just be the fact that we would not be able to. Oh, let me ask a question here because I want to make sure I understand your question. You're saying if we decided that we were going to put the money into Constellation to develop Ares 5 and not add any, just take money the way we could find it. If that's the question you asked, without putting an additional $5.9 billion on top of the program, what we would find would be that we would have a heavy lift launch vehicle with no capability of putting people on the surface of the moon or on Mars or anywhere else because we would have expended all the money on the vehicle itself. We would find that we're back in this conundrum that the Augustine Committee found us, where money was really not the only problem. It was a significant problem, but it was not the only problem because we had allowed the program to deteriorate to the point that if you threw all this money down here, it wasn't that we had things waiting to be built. For example, one of the procurements that I stopped was a study for the Altair, the lander. The Constellation program had not been allowed to go that far because of the shortage of funds. So, we would have found ourselves having to go from scratch to do the studies on development and design and development of a lander for the moon.
Let me ask you about,
There is a strong reason to question the dollar figures that are produced, that was produced by the Augustine Commission. Can you provide the committee the Ares 1 and the Ares 5 cost estimate NASA had last spring, and also they had estimated last spring, and also provide the committee with a written detailed explanation from NASA as to how operating Ares 1 would cost $4 billion a year?
So I can provide that for the record. I'll be glad to do that.
And the reason I mentioned that was because the my staff was given the numbers of Ares 1, the operation cost at $1.3 billion.
That's per flight.
Okay, so you're saying
I do know that the 1.3, 1.6 billion, and when I talk about things that shocked me, because I wanted to use an Ares type vehicle as a test vehicle, and when I asked the question, how much would it cost me to fly, not an Ares 1, but that kind of vehicle, then the number given me at the time was $1.6 billion per flight. And I mean, it seems like an extreme number to me, and I'm still looking. So I will be glad to provide you with the information that, the basis for that number.
Well, the reason I say that is because this is the response from NASA, and it says total cost for 3 flights in a year is 1.1 billion.
I'll go back and double check my numbers and then get back to you for the records.
If you could, give us some explanation on that. We've heard a lot about inflated numbers about how much it will cost to complete the Constellation program, including the heavy lift of Ares 5, which I mentioned. My understanding is that NASA's estimate in the spring of last year for developing Ares 5 was that by 2020, through the first flight of Ares 5, the cost of development plus production costs would be $16.5 billion. If Ares 1 is not completed, which means we could not benefit from the way the two programs were designed to use some of the same technology, then the fact would result in a cost of Ares 5 of about $27 billion. Our staff were told last Friday by the CFO that the cost of developing a heavy lift rocket would be $30 to $50 billion. What engineering data have you obtained since the spring of '09, which leads to the incredibly inflated figure of $50 billion?
Congressman, I'll have to get that to you for entry into the record. I was not aware of that figure.
Okay.